is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, which, and of course that third word, unceded, means there was never any treaty signed. Most of Canada is covered by treaties. Those treaties were not necessarily negotiated in good faith, nor have they been honored, but one could say that at least there are some treaties. Almost the entirety of the province that I live in, there are no treaties. So, which means that I am an occupier. I live as a part of an ongoing occupation, something I did not understand when I first moved from, I grew up in Toronto, which is in a treaty territory, and then I moved to British Columbia, and I had not been taught in my history that there were no treaties at all in British Columbia, and that in fact, so this is one of the things that I try and grapple with on a daily basis, is what it means to live as a part of an occupying population, an invasive population in an indigenous territory. And so it's always important to me to acknowledge when I'm at home, but also when I travel, that of the colonial history that I'm a part of, and the ongoing colonial history that I'm a part of, and to remind myself of the obligations that I have to continue to work through this problem and find out the ways to be in right relationship with the ancestral keepers of the land on which I am privileged to live. So the area that I'm going to explore is using methods of applied theater as a way to model systemic behavior and systemic phenomena. And so this work grows out very much out of a South American tradition, which is Augusto Boal's Theater of the Oppressed. So, which has been one of the most important, I think, exports intellectually from South America to the global north, has been both the pedagogy of the oppressed of Paulo Freire and also the Theater of the Oppressed of Augusto Boal. So my journey to systems thinking is a strange one. Some people have heard a little bit of it already, so I'll try and keep it short. But so I'm an actor and a director and a writer and a producer in both theater and film. And ever since I was 6 years old, the only thing I ever wanted to be was an actor. I was on this path, very direct path to doing that, and did all that, and did an undergraduate degree in acting, fine arts degree, and then a master's of fine arts in directing at the University of British Columbia, where I now teach. And began a career as an actor in film and television and et cetera, theater. But then somewhere along the line, I got introduced to the idea of cybernetics, and I began to understand acting the way I was taught according to the Stanislavski system of acting. I began to understand that as a form of cybernetics, which then led me into an engagement with systems. And I'd also previously had some training in the Theater of the Oppressed. So in Vancouver, there's a man by the name of David Diamond who had studied with Boal and then had returned to Canada, and he has, over the last 30 years, established himself as the preeminent and sort of most important practitioner of the Theater of the Oppressed certainly in Western Canada, and arguably in all of Canada. Along the way, as all practitioners do, in the spirit of Boal will give away the techniques, and then one has to adapt them to one's own individual context. The context of the Brazil of 1960s and 70s, when Boal was developing his work, and the context of Canada at different times, very different contexts. Along the way, Diamond felt that he needed to leave behind the binary of oppressor and oppressed. That he was not in any way disputing that that was appropriate for Boal's original work. And in a way, it sort of follows on from Boal's own transition, whereas, as many of you will know, when Boal was in exile after he was imprisoned and tortured by the regime in Brazil, and he was working in Europe, he he would do workshops on types of oppression that he was used to, bad working conditions, racism, different types of things. But then he also saw people expressing that they wanted to talk about feeling depressed, feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling kinds of existential dread. And he thought, this isn't oppression. I don't understand this. And famously he said, where are the cops? Where are the cops? Because the police for him were a force of oppressiveness. And he then came to the conclusion, though, that the cops were in people's heads, that in places like Europe, oppression is not as overt as it is in Brazil or in other places. It's internalized. And so he began to work with those internal methods. So I think that David Diamond's decision to leave behind the oppressor and the oppressed binary is kind of on the continuum of the way Boal's own work evolved during his exile in Europe. So he changed the name of his practice to Theater for Living. There was a very particular moment when he did that, which was that he was doing a forum theater presentation, and in the classic theater of the oppressed format, so those of you, forum theater, with the play shows a situation getting worse and worse and gets to its worst possible moment, and then it stops, and then we do the play again, and people are invited to replace characters and try and change the outcome of the play. For Boal, you were only allowed to replace the oppressed person. You couldn't replace the oppressor because we didn't want some magic solution where you could suddenly make the oppressor not an oppressor. That was not a way to try and rehearse how people would deal with oppression. But David Diamond was doing a show with refugees from Guatemala, and someone in the audience, and there was a character in the play of someone from a death squad, soldier from the death squad. And someone in the audience put up their hand and said, I want to replace the soldier from the death squad. I want to play that character. And Diamond said, no, you can't do that. You can only replace the oppressed person. And this person insisted, no, I have to play the death squad soldier. And Diamond was very, very nervous, but he said, okay, well, something's telling me there's something I need to learn here right now. So he broke the rules and said, okay, please come on up and do it. And he replaced the death squad character and proceeded to tell a story about being a child soldier, about how being abducted when he was young and taken away to the mountains and trained to be a soldier. And so he humanized this character in a way that was really unexpected, not in a way that excuses the behavior or condones the behavior, but changes the complexion, provides new information that can shift sort of perceptions. And that was the key to Diamond starting to think, in his own words, more systemically, not along just a binary of oppressor and oppressed, but of numerous non-linear interacting factors that can lead to these moments of oppression and confrontation. So I had the opportunity to train with David Diamond and also to work in a show, creating a touring show with him on reconciliation between Canada's settler population and Indigenous population. It was a life-changing experience for me. And along the way, I was still thinking a lot about cybernetics and systems, and I had been long looking for a theatrical method. One thing that I started to understand from systems theater is that, and I think this, I'm hoping this reflects back to what Professor Fuenmayor was talking about today and some other things we've heard, is that theater has always been a model of complex social systems. That's sort of what it's been doing all along, certainly in the Western tradition, all the way back to the ancient Greeks. It's a model of how different people interact and how the conditions and the context that they're in, how and the worldviews of the characters, the epistemologies of the characters and their needs and desires condition the interactions that then we see. So the phenomena of the performance is a model of an interacting system. So that's already, I think, what theater has been doing, certainly dramatic theater, narrative theater, for thousands of years. But if I wanted to be more explicit about that, more direct about that, And then I started to think, well, what would a mode of systemic theater exploration look like? And the more I started to realize it already kind of existed in the work of Boal, but that the systemic nature of the things inside Boal were intrinsic. And I feeling that it was really important to spread systemic awareness to people, I decided to further adapt the work myself to try and make the systemic phenomena and the systemic possibilities for systemic kinds of analysis more overt. So, so I don't call what I do the theater of the oppressed, because I don't believe it is, particularly in the context in which I do it. I do it largely at the university, which is a very privileged context. Not that there aren't forms of oppression in the university in Canada, but I call it systems theater. So, and the last thing I'll say before we get into just doing some stuff is that of the many people that I've been influenced by, one is a cybernetician named Ranulph Glanville, who very much involved in second order cybernetics and design and performance and a lot of things. And he, in classic sort of circular cybernetic thinking, tried to break the idea that we need to understand in order to act, that we don't take action until we understand something. There's this idea that you need to learn everything you need to know before you act. And he said, no, there are times, maybe even more often, where we need to act in order to understand, that we need to have the embodied experience first, and then we can make conceptual sense of it after the fact or while it's occurring. And in this, he was very much influenced by the developmental psychology of Jean Piaget, who would talk about the way children explore their environments and build their concepts. They're touching things, they're putting them in their mouths, they're smelling things, and they only develop a schema of concepts through which to order those things sort of after the fact. When someone comes and starts talking to them and gives them language to sort of make the distinctions, further make the distinctions of the things they're experiencing, and to make, as Maturana might say, coordinations of actions possible. So in that spirit, I'm going to ask the folks who are gathered here, if they are willing to come and do a couple of experiential things, which we will do first and then talk about afterwards. I guess I will continue to use this microphone so that folks online can hear me. And then when I get comments from people, we'll pass the microphone so that people can hear. The things I'm going to ask, invite you to participate in. It's an invitation, not a demand. And they will not be they will require some movement, but they will not be too physically strenuous, but they will require some movement. So I ask you to, as a colleague of mine says, be your own best wise adult in terms of knowing what you need physically to be able to participate comfortably. And if you need to step away, then by all means, step away. No questions asked. Yes. So if people who want to participate, come up and make a circle, please. We'll stand in a circle. And I'll make sure that we get translation for instructions so they're clear. Okay. Okay, and have we got a good shot so that the folks online can see? Okay, I'm going to step out of the circle and let you close the circle. Some of you will have played this game either with me or I don't know. I mean, people in this region, a lot of you know Boal's work quite well. So I'm imagining some of you will have played this game before, and some of you I know played it with me 5 years ago and maybe lots of other times too. So instruction number 1, look around the circle and pick someone you are going to pretend to be afraid of. And don't let them know you've chosen them. Secret. Okay. Instruction numero 2 is look around the circle again. Pick a different person, also not letting them know, that you are going to pretend is your protector. Okay? Listo? All right. So when I clap my hands, your only instruction is to make sure you are always standing somewhere where your protector is always in between you and the person you're afraid of. Okay, and we will confine ourselves to this space just to here. So just this space here. Okay, so we have another constraint. We have an environmental constraint. Okay? Okay, standing by. Okay, you can stop. Okay, you can stop. Great. Okay. Grab a chair and we'll sit in a circle, but we'll make the circle around the camera so the camera can see us, and then we'll talk about this experience. Okay. Good, good. Okay, so we had the physical embodied experience first. Now we'll just talk about it. So my first question is just, what was that like? Any observations at all of what that experience was like for you? And I'll give you the mic if you want to speak.
Él está diciendo que pues además de la experiencia física de pronto agotadora, vamos a hablar de eso un poco más tarde, él quiere preguntarles a todos qué fue, o sea, cómo se sintieron, qué les pareció.
Very funny.
Very funny.
Very funny.
Okay.
Yeah. And very useful to have contact with people.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Yeah.
Que no sé, y de pronto es una impresión mía, que quizás muchos me hubieran escogido como amenaza.
Everybody or most of us choose him as someone who would be afraid.
Ah, okay. Gracias. So just for those other English speakers on the Zoom call who might not have understood, Angel said that his impression, and it might just have been his impression, was that everyone had chosen him to be afraid. Most of the people had chosen him to be afraid of. Yeah. Did you want to say more, or Sufi?
Y también sentía que yo estaba como desequilibrando el juego en algún momento, porque sentía que como que todos se movían y llegaban a un punto quieto si yo no estaba ahí. Y cuando yo los buscaba, todo se desequilibraba. Y yo, ay, ¿en serio?
He thought, or he's thinking that he has like, I don't say it. Like, yes, he's the balance of everybody, and when he stay like don't move, everybody was like, okay, we're going to make a balance and equilibrium, but then he moves a little and everyone's go crazy.
I just want a follow-up question. What emotions did you experience? Given those things you've described, what emotions did you have?
Como mal genio y como si me tuvieran cierto desprecio o repulsión, como si generara eso.
No.
Sí, pero es que todos...
¿Me puedes como ayudar a... He feels mad, yeah, and he thinks like every one of us or the majority of us were like, oh, we don't like you, repulsion, go away or something like that.
At the beginning, I felt a little bit suffocated. I don't understand why all the people were running around me and say, no, let me see, I want to look for my protector. And I can't because I say, what's the matter with them? Yes, I feel in sometimes, like you said, perhaps all the people be afraid of me and they try to avoid me, or why Gina is looking for me. May I be her protector? I'm really confused. But I enjoy.
Go ahead. You want to?
¿Sí lo entendiste? Sí, o bueno, lo que estaba diciendo Patty es que se sintió muy parecida a como se sintió Ángel y que hubo un momento en que Gina la agarró y que también sintió como mucha responsabilidad, ¿entendí? Como... Sí, se sintió como confundida de lo que está pasando.
O porque China me estaba evadiendo y yo quería buscarla, o bueno, no, yo no entiendo cuál es el papel, yo y por eso en un rato me paré y a ver qué es lo que pasa.
She was so confused that she didn't know what's going on, and then she started like noticing that Gina started to begin afraid of her. So she's like, okay, I'm so confused. I'm gonna stay like this. And then she started like seeing like everybody's going like, and then she like what's going to do, what to do, and that.
Gracias. Anyone else? Yes, Daniel.
Yes, I picked for my the person to be afraid of course, Gina. So you see Gina, you see her face, and you like exactly you are afraid of her. So I picked Gina, but I picked as my protector Patty. So, it was something for me difficult because when I was trying to put Patty in the middle of Gina, something happened and it wasn't very easy to do that. So my feelings were to be impotent. Like I cannot do this. This is impossible. And then you start dancing, and I say like, what can I do? She's my protector, and she's dancing. So, and I am afraid. Look at Gina. I'm afraid of her. Sí, no, es que estaba diciendo que. Ok. No, yo decía que si uno ve la cara de Gina, uno dice, pues ya de una le tengo miedo. Entonces yo por eso seleccioné a Gina. Yo dije, voy a seleccionar a Gina por eso. Para las personas que nos están viendo, estoy molestando, ¿no? Pues tenemos una confianza con Gina. Hay un sentimiento de impotencia. Estaba tratando de lograr poner a Patty en la mitad entre Gina y yo, pero era imposible, porque Patty se movía, incluso bailaba. Yo decía, ¿qué hace mi protector bailando? Entonces sentí impotencia, era imposible. Incluso corría y me desgastaba y me sentía cada vez más impotente. Incluso yo no sabía si era el protector o el agresor de alguien, no tengo ni idea, no me importó. Eso fue.
Gracias. Yes, Ángel.
Muy desconsiderado Daniel porque era mi protector. Y yo también escogí a Gina como la persona que sentía miedo. O sea, yo también dije, no, pues es imposible, hagámoslo con Gina. Y yo también sentía con Daniel, pensé que era como algo que tenía contra, o sea, que yo era la amenaza de Daniel, porque era evíteme, y yo, o sea, y ese protector que me conseguí.
Okay.
Angel said that Daniel was unconsidered with him because he chose Daniel as his protector. And he also chose Gina as the person to be afraid of. And then she said like, Daniel, why are you moving like that? and he think in some moment that he thought that in some moment that he was like playing something with him, and he also chose Gina because Gina is so lovely, so cute, so nobody's gonna choose her.
Muchas gracias. Muy bueno. If folks are watching online, if you want to put in the chat anything that you observed that you want to comment on, and if not, that's fine too, but I want to give the folks in the Zoom room a chance if there's any observations you want to make of what you witnessed. We'll just give a moment to see if anything comes up in the chat. There was a kind of emerging later, a pattern, yes, I saw something similar. The longer it went on, a pattern started to emerge. A lot of chaos at the beginning, but it seemed to be starting to emerge into a pattern that was standing in a line, and then it would almost sort of reach an equilibrium, and then whoop, it would, but it was, yeah, around protectors. The search of the protector seems to keep hidden those who you are afraid of. Interesting. Yes, thank you. Oh, so do you want to translate those? Pardon.
Bueno, lo que dice en el chat es que parece que emergió en algún momento un patrón. Y lo que Tom dijo era que sí, que hubo un momento en el que logramos como estabilizarnos, pero después otra vez caos. Y la segunda dice que había una búsqueda del protector que parecía mantener escondido a quien estaban, a quien le temían.
Gracias, muchas gracias, Jose and Alejandro. Okay, so a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, a lot of phenomena. Now, I'm going to ask you to think of the experience, including all of the things that you've named, and maybe anything else that you didn't name but occurred to you, as a metaphor for an organization. So most of the people in this circle work at Ibagué, and we have a guest, but you have a home university. So if we were to say this is a metaphor for your life in that organization, what ideas come to your mind if you now think of your experience in that register as a metaphor for your organizational life?
Él nos está pidiendo que pensemos en todo lo que acabamos de decir y tengamos en cuenta los sentimientos, las emociones y todo lo que pasó, y que pensemos en esto como una metáfora organizacional, o sea, de algo que sucede en una organización, que pues entiende que todos nosotros de alguna forma trabajamos acá o tenemos un vínculo con la universidad, pero que si pudiéramos pensar que esto puede ser alguna metáfora acerca de cómo funciona una organización.
Ya. En ese sentido, yo me sentí afortunada por la estructura que había de la organización, porque precisamente yo había escogido a Patty como mi amenaza y a Ginny como mi protectora, y todo el tiempo Gina estuvo detrás de Patty. Entonces yo lo único que tenía que hacer era tratar como de separarme un poco, ver hacia dónde iba Gina y solo caminar muy tranquilamente detrás de Gina. Entonces, para mi percepción, desde mi punto de vista, la estructura que estaba pasando, o sea, ese caos era funcional para mí.
She said, like, in the organization that came up, she feel lucky because she chose Gina as her protector and Patty as the person to be afraid of. So always Gina was like this with Patty, and she's like, okay, I have to make a step away, look where is Patty, where is Gina, and then just like move like this and like this. That's what she said. So she feels like lucky because the thing that came up, it was good for her. No, nothing like the chaos that everyone said, she said, like, okay, for me, what's good?
No, pues que me parece supremamente interesante porque, in English, no, please. Porque ahorita como analizando también los comentarios que dicen, lo que acaba de decir Carol y lo que los compañeros compartieron antes, empiezo como a atar caos de cuándo comenzó el caos en la dinámica, sobre todo porque cuando Patty se quedaba de espaldas a mí, porque ella era mi protectora de Ángel, entonces ella se quedaba quieta, muchas cosas se alineaban. Perdón.
I'm sorry, she said a lot of things. I was trying to keep them. She said like now she realized about what the people say in the chat and what everyone's saying that she realized about the chaos that was happening around Patty. She was afraid of Angel, and that's why she was like with Patty like this. And then she realized that Patty just stopped, and she realized that everyone tend to stop too. That's what she was saying.
Sí, nos alineábamos y cuando Patty me volteaba a ver, porque ahora entiendo que yo era tu protectora, yo no quería que ella me viera porque me estaba protegiendo, era de Ángel, entonces ahí yo me movía para estar en la espalda de Patty. Entonces es muy interesante que cuando tú no me dabas cuando tú no me mirabas, era cuando todo como que empezaba a ordenarse en la medida de el protector y el del miedo.
That was a moment that she always tries to keep Patty in Patty's back. So then Patty turns around and she's like, okay, I'm turning around too because I want her to protect me for Angel. So she has to be like seeing or watching Angel moves. And then when Patty turned, she turned too. So that's what she found really interesting about the exercise.
I just want to comment on the few things I've heard, and then we'll hear some more comments from the group. So it seems like we've noticed a phenomenon that has to do with a lot of connections in the system to Patty. See? You discovered that your job could be quite simple, to just boop, 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 and you have equilibrium. Chaos around you, but for you, inside that chaos, boop, boop. And you noticed that if Patty stops, a lot of things stop. So, so the next layer to think about this in terms of particular systems principles that are being embodied in this, for me, what's coming through is Patty as a leverage point. So we want to communicate to students or anyone that the notion of leverage. We understand, right? The simplest definition of leverage is the node in the system with the most connections. Patty, right? So you were able to solve in a complex activity where the leverage point was.
Listo, que parece ver que empezamos a notar que Patricia era un punto súper importante en el juego, ¿sí? Que por lo menos Carol empezó a ver que si observaba a Patricia, para ella era mucho más fácil. Y que Gina empezó a notar que, uy, si Patty se detiene, todos nos detenemos. Y que empezó pues, a ver que ella era alguien importante. Que dentro pues, de lo que él está intentando explicar, esto se conoce como punto de apalancamiento. Entonces, Patty es el punto de apalancamiento. Para simplificar la definición de punto de apalancamiento, es como un nodo que tiene múltiples conexiones dentro del mismo sistema. Entonces, Patty es un nodo que tiene múltiples conexiones en el sistema.
Yeah. See, last comment, and then I'll pass to you, is one thing I've noticed in organizational systems is that the person who is with that type of leverage is not always the person in an official position of power. right? So being able to discern where that leverage is, it might be the person with the most institutional knowledge. And then what happens? That person goes away. And the system has been over-reliant on that one leverage point, and that person leaves, gets a better job, God forbid, gets sick, boom, suddenly the system is in deep trouble.
Que antes de darle la palabra a Patty, él dice, quiero que se den cuenta de que la persona que usualmente tiene más conexiones dentro del sistema no es necesariamente la que tiene más poder, ¿sí? Que usualmente es una persona que puede conocer muy bien la institución, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, alguien que... Y en ese momento en que ninguna persona dice, no, pues conseguí un mejor trabajo, me voy, empieza el caos en la organización. Que pensemos que no es alguien que ocupa un puesto directivo muy alto, sino que puede ser una secretaria. Eso sí, ya fue algo que yo agregué, ¿sí? Pero puede ser una secretaria, que es la persona que tiene muchas conexiones con muchas personas y que hace más fácil o más difícil nuestro trabajo.
Thank you. Yeah, I can feel that because when I stop, everybody stop and look at me and I say, perhaps the game is that I am the point, the center of this game, and I don't know. So I decided to stop because I never danced. I only tried to jump because she was, no, I never danced. I wanted to jump because she was my protector and I can't put her between you because I feel afraid of you. So that I say, okay, perhaps if I stop, all the people stop too. And I do that. And I did that. But I agree with the persons who start or who are in the high position, not always are the persons who have all the better connection with other people. And perhaps this is one thing that we have to talk in our meetings, no? But that is a very good idea for us to thinking about how to could be better in our relationships with the others and put attention with that. Yeah.
Did you want to try? Sorry.
They understand.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Como la situación está delicada.
Que también, digamos, personalmente siento que si bien estamos en un proceso de formación como pensadores sistémicos, ahora que lo pienso, siento cierta frustración al no haber reconocido los patrones que empezaron a presentarse dentro de la actividad, ¿no? Pues, digamos, esto es una de las cosas que siempre se menciona como pensadores sistémicos, ¿no? Hay que reconocer patrones. Ahora, después de terminar la actividad, es que empiezo a notar, claro, cuando Daniel, Gina, ahí sí empiezo a reconocer los patrones, pero en el momento no. Eso, digamos, como llevado al campo de la experiencia, siento que dificulta las intervenciones en organizaciones o en comunidad. Esa no posibilidad de reconocer patrones de manera instantánea. Yo creo que es un proceso de entrenamiento. Sí, quieres dar. Ay, disculpa.
He's saying that he feels a little bit bad because he's a system thinker in training and he didn't recognize the patterns. And then when we hear us talking, he said, yeah, it was there, and I didn't notice that. So he started feeling that, and also he said that in our organization that will be like a limit because that you don't have like the experience to notice like that the patterns, or maybe being into the organization that patterns are invisible.
I'll just comment. Just a quick comment on a few things. So interesting that you said I didn't do any dancing. For you, it was dancing was going on. So we have the phenomena of seeing your behavior and creating our own narrative about what you're doing. You're looking after you're serving some other need, and he's thinking, why are you dancing? So that how we our own mental models then play that role. And yes, it's so hard to see the pattern that you're inside of, right? For the most experienced systems thinkers, I would say, even so. In a larger group, it becomes really important. This is one of the smaller groups I played this with. So not to take anything away from Gina, who was very smart, but it's with this group, it's at least possible to start to find the pattern. With larger groups, it becomes impossible. So Angel should not feel too bad, because that's the trick, is that when you're in it, I find, especially with a game like this, your world becomes very small. And that's another phenomenon that's interesting to me about this game, is the world shrinks to the person I'm afraid of and my protector, and my world becomes very, very small.
Él te dijo que no te preocupes, que está bien, o sea, que no tienes por qué sentirte frustrado por no hacerlo, que es muy difícil darse cuenta de los patrones cuando estás dentro del sistema. Sí, que incluso para los pensadores sistémicos más experimentados, cuando uno está dentro del sistema es muy difícil notar los patrones. Que algo también le pareció interesante es que Daniel pensó que Patty estaba bailando, y Patty dijo, yo no estaba bailando. Sí, traté como de saltar o hacer ninguna cosa, pero yo no estaba bailando. Entonces, que también emerge dentro del ejercicio algunos modelos mentales que tenemos acerca de lo que hacen los otros, y que digamos que nosotros podemos empezar a suponer, ¿sí? O interpretar, percibir, percibir al respecto. Entonces, que por favor no te sientas mal, porque es común que eso suceda. Que este es uno de los grupos más pequeños con los que ha hecho el ejercicio, y que en los grupos que son muy grandes es muy difícil ver los patrones. Que Gina es una chica muy lista y que se dio cuenta de que Patty era el punto de apalancamiento, pero que en los grupos grandes, digamos que es muy difícil, porque para todos el mundo se convierte en la persona que temo y el protector. Entonces, que es más complicado darse cuenta de quién es la persona, o sea, cuál es la persona o las personas que están llevando el punto de apalancamiento.
También hay otra cosa que me hace preguntar, y es, si bien este es un grupo pequeño y da la dinámica del ejercicio, si en algún momento nos hubiéramos podido quedar quietos toda la organización. No sé si, dada la naturaleza de las interacciones, el movimiento es una constante. No sé, me pregunto si en algún momento nos hubiéramos podido quedar quietos totalmente, o si es necesario seguir moviéndonos.
He said that considering that this is a small group, if in any moment we could like be stay like stop, because for his perception, he did like, it was difficult, even if we are not as a big group, but could you tell us if there is any moment that we could stop, and what should have happened to stay stop?
Yeah, I'll just, one of the most important things about this game, and then we'll have your comment, and then I'm going to turn back to the folks online just for a moment, is that you are not allowed to talk. And so the absence of communication is one of the major features of the game. So what would need to happen was that you need to be able to talk to each other. And so that's another sort of, having that constraint in the game is key to draw out that idea that this whole system in this game is running on individual mental models that have been imposed. I mean, I ask you to choose a protector and a person you're afraid of, all of which are private and none of which are being shared and communicated with each other. So all of this behavior is being generated by all these isolated minds. And so without dialogue, without slowing down and being able to speak, to sort out the causal mechanisms, certainly is beyond me. Maybe other people with different types of spatial or mathematical intelligence could figure it out just by watching, but I know that I can't.
Tratando de responder tu pregunta, él dice que consideres que una de las restricciones que él puso es que no podíamos hablar, ¿sí? Y que restringir la comunicación en el sistema pues hace de que sea muy difícil llegar a ese equilibrio, ¿sí? Que probablemente si habláramos las cosas hubieran sido distintas y hubiéramos llegado como a un acuerdo, pero que dentro de las reglas del juego que él dejó era no hablar. Entonces el juego se transforma en algo de que son muchos modelos mentales trabajando al mismo tiempo. Sí, pero que están aislados, porque cada uno hace lo que se supone que debe hacer.
I'm going to speak in Spanish. Okay. Me parece, bueno, interesantísimo porque aparecen cosas o propiedades importantísimas del pensamiento sistémico. Aparte del patrón, sí, apareció, todos podemos ver ese patrón. También creo que emergen retroalimentaciones, ¿no? Todos te estábamos viendo a ti, tú también eras mi protectora, pero tú eras mi... Entonces, tú te fuiste dando cuenta sin hablar de la actitud de nosotros. Y esa actitud te hizo a ti, te retroalimentó para decir, no, me voy a quedar quieta. Entonces, creo que es algo muy interesante porque aparecen retroalimentaciones positivas y negativas, creo.
She's saying that it's really interesting how in this game like came up systems thinking properties, characteristics, and one of them is the feedback. And she noticed that Patty was she read the feedback and she said, "Okay, I'm gonna stay quiet. I'm gonna stay like this. I'm gonna stop and see what's happening." So see what's going to happen. So she said, like, it's really interesting to see that other things about system thinking came up in this game that we didn't realize, but like consciously. But then it started like everyone was doing systems thinking properties without knowing that.
See, very important. And then, yeah, then I would ask people at the end of the session to say, not remember the concepts and also remember how it felt in your body, because then connecting those two will deepen your capacity for systems thinking. Just asking if there's any comments, questions from the people online, either in English or Spanish, however you'd like to communicate. And if not, that's fine too, but I just wanted to make sure that we open the space for. Okay. All right, we'll carry on. All right. Oh, a question. Sí. Sí. So a question is being typed. I don't know, I think it's, okay. How do you manage the transitional emotion from being in the game to then reflect and then go to the real world? How do you manage the transitional emotion? Very good question. Yeah, sí.
¿Cómo puedes gestionar las emociones transicionales? De estar en el juego y reflejarlas en el mundo real. ¿Cómo poner lo que pasó allá, pasarlo a la vida real?
Sí. But then have to, participants get emotional, but then have to go and do their jobs. In real life, yes. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, you know, we try and build those, we always end a session, when I do a full session in the context of my work at UBC, with a closing circle, so that people have a chance to say things they want to say to sort of close out their experience. So we sort of rely on ritual and ceremony to try and sort of close off that portion, which of course is not going to take care of every bit of residual emotion, but hopefully by having a place to sort of check out, as we would say in English, there's a way to sort of leave what you need to leave in the room where we've done the work, and then go back out into the space, hopefully just taking the learning with you. But I think like anything, so one of my great role models and colleagues in theater, one of his expressions is courage is a muscle, and the more you use the muscle, the stronger it gets. And I think systems thinking is a muscle, is a set of muscles. It can be. That's a metaphor that I use anyway. And then also, yes, the pace of needing to do your work. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned ritual. Just writing a book on systems thinking about ritual. I made a mistake of not closing. Yes, I've made that mistake as well. So, yeah, and then being able to hopefully begin to develop the capacity to slow things down just a little bit, even in the chaos of our work. But yeah, there's certainly no easy answer to that provocative question. And when we do full theater pieces in this work, we always make sure that we have professional counselors in the audience, so that if someone in the cast or in the audience has a strong reaction and feels they need support, that we have that support available.
Voy a intentar traducir si alguno de ustedes me recuerda de pronto algo que se me escape. La pregunta pues es cómo llevar todas esas emociones que están pasando al mundo real, ¿sí? Y él dice que no es un trabajo fácil, que puede dar un ejemplo de algo que él hizo en su universidad, y es que trabaja como con equipos en un momento como a puerta cerrada, ¿sí? Y que eso permite como que el ejercicio emerja como, algo similar pasa en el trabajo, y que permita como que las emociones surjan. Entonces, ahí pues Tom mencionaba algo así como que parece como si fuera un ritual, porque empezamos como a develar ciertas cosas, y la persona que hizo la pregunta le dice como, es gracioso que menciones un ritual porque acabo de terminar un libro que habla de pensamiento sistémico y los rituales, y que él hizo un error cerrando como la sesión, pero no cerrando como el círculo emocional que estaba surgiendo, ¿sí? Porque pues como que cerró la sesión, pero pues la gente sí habló ahí, pero después volvió al trabajo como si nada. Y él dijo, yo también, Tom dice que él también tuvo ese error, pero que digamos que va trabajando en ello, y que es importante como que empecemos a relacionar el ejercicio como con lo que pasa en nuestro trabajo, y empezar a mirar quién lo hace.
No, sí, perfecto. No, es que quería decir algo con respecto a hace 5 años que me conecta mucho con lo que dice pues la persona que está escribiendo, creo que es José Rodrigo, creo que se llama José Rodrigo. Muchas gracias por las preguntas y las reflexiones. Y es que hace 5 años nosotros hicimos un ejercicio similar, y a mí me parece que despertó o abrió ciertas emocionalidades que afectaron procesos de relacionamiento en el grupo. Por supuesto me surgió la pregunta, ¿qué hacemos para que esa emocionalidad más bien pues se dirija, se oriente, nos hagamos cargo hacia una respuesta que puede ser más adecuada para el manejo de los conflictos? Me quedó ahí latente. Por supuesto, yo sé que no hay una respuesta perfecta, no hay una sola manera, pero también siento que es una preocupación grande. So 5 years ago, I found to have the same question as Jose Rodrigo had in this moment, because I I felt in that moment that the exercises that we did, even though I love them and I use them in somehow in my classes, open up and package a lot of emotions that in that moment I was not able to manage, and I think some of my colleagues as well. And that opened up some conflicts or discussions more than the ones that we could manage. So it opened up more, and not it didn't taught me how to manage conflict in somehow. So I had to be careful about those emotions that I open it in that moment. So I have the same question. The same question is very important, as you have said. The same question of how do you manage the emotions that you open in these spaces, because you open it in somehow like having this confidence to do it. But in the real world, but there are a lot of conflicts of interests. There are power relations. There are a lot of things that has to be done. I have a job, and there is a boss that is waiting for me to do it, but I need the other person also to do the things that I need to present to my boss. So those things create a lot of conflict, and with those emotions could be kind of a weapon in somehow.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I mean, in some ways, in some ways, I answer the question with a question, and not to be difficult or to try and dodge the question, because it's an important one. But what do you do to survive those things that are there, whether we do this work or not? Do you know what I mean? The power relation, the stress, the conflict of interest, all of those things are there, whether we do this work or not. So what are the things we rely on? Our relationships, being, finding the people that we can be close to, finding the people we can confide in, building solidarity with each other, building community. And so ideally, if you do this work enough, and my apologies if I 5 years ago left the team in more distress than before I arrived. Hopefully I'm a better practitioner now, that I won't leave that behind. But yeah, my Spanish too, yes. But you develop a community of practice. And so in the program that I run at UBC in Vancouver, we have a community of practice. And it's become a very, very important space for the people who do this work. And during the pandemic, it was an absolute lifeline. Even when we weren't meeting in person to do this work, we met, usually the community of practice meets once a month. During the early days of the pandemic, when we were in full lockdown, we met every week. And then we had, as you probably all know, or as you all know, we had the murder of George Floyd in the United States, and the huge unleashing of calls for greater racial justice, etc. And those conversations came in. Where else in the workplace were people able to have those conversations in ways that they felt safe? So I think the answer lies in community, the way it does with most of these things. You face the realities of working life in Colombia every single day. This work maybe brings them up in a way that's more intense. And then I think hopefully the antidote, or the thing that makes it manageable, is that your community relations become more intense. You know what I mean? Your friendships become more intense. You build a community that can go into that space together, I hope. Okay, that's a lot, I know.
Dijo muchas cosas, pero pues para empezar, de lo que quiero yo comenzar es que él se disculpa con nosotros, con los que estuvimos hace 5 años, si de pronto él destapó algo que generó algún conflicto, sí, que en ese momento, pues estaba, que espera que ahora sea un mejor como practicante de esta metodología para ayudarnos como a atravesar que por supuesto, obviamente existen las relaciones de poder, existe esa jerarquía, existen ciertas obligaciones que pues es muy difícil que un ejercicio de estos en unas horas pues logre abordar o solucionar, sí, como calmar las aguas, pero que es algo que constantemente está trabajando y que se cuestiona mucho con su equipo de trabajo, que el acompañamiento y tratar de hacernos cada día más cercanos y conociéndonos unos a los otros es mucho mejor. Que, por ejemplo, en la pandemia, incluso en los primeros días que nos encerraron, pues que ellos tomaron la decisión que tenían que reunirse every week. Did you meet every week or every month? Cada, durante el confinamiento, ellos se reunían usualmente cada mes, pero después, durante el confinamiento, cada semana se empezaron a reunir y la idea era como que compartieran, se conocieran mejor, empezaran a hablar un poco de lo que estaban sintiendo. ¿Y qué pasó en Estados Unidos? Que ustedes recordarán lo de George Floyd, el hombre afroamericano que fue pues asesinado por la policía, o fue, sí, digamos que eso trajo muchas emociones, también estaba, digamos, dentro de la estructura organizacional, muchos modelos mentales de lo que estaba sucediendo alrededor de ese tema, que probablemente era muy sensible hablarlo con un jefe, con un compañero, con alguien que tenía algo de tu trabajo y que podía ser, pues, digamos, difícil empezar a trabajar, pero que es algo que está continuamente trabajando, que la respuesta que él nos da es que probablemente este no sea lo único que se necesite para poderlo manejar, pero que son los primeros pasos que él espera poder traer mejores respuestas y este año ayudarnos mucho más a manejar ese tipo de conflictos.
No, lo voy a decir en español primero y después lo traduzco, ¿ya? Bueno. I'm going, and then okay, bueno. Yo pienso que todos en la vida cotidiana hacemos rituales y que estamos llenos de rituales que tienen sentido, significado para todos nosotros y que si bien un juego de estos no es que nos va a solucionar todos los problemas que están afuera, sí nos permite empezar a manejar mejor nuestras emociones y entender las emociones de los demás. Yo creo que uno tiene que ser muy honesto con lo que uno es, con lo que uno siente y con lo que uno piensa y actuar en consonancia. Yo en eso trato de ser como muy en ese estilo y eso me permite tener relaciones amables, entender a veces a los jefes que no me caen bien las decisiones que toman, pero tratar de poder decirlas para no quedarme con eso adentro. Tú sabes que yo digo las cosas, me quejo y después de que hablo, quedo libre. Entonces, como que es eso, no quedarse uno como con las cosas ni aceptarlas porque toca, sino como tener la posibilidad de descargarse. Esto es una manera de descargarse y de poder contar las cosas. Then in English, I'll try that. It's not a good way, but I'll try. In our society, every day we have rituals. Every day, but one of them have very special meaning for us, another no, don't have that, but the most important of this kind of activities is that perhaps they are not the solution for the real life and our jobs, but it's the best way for thinking in our emotion and how to manage that in our daily activities. And I'll try every day to think, feel, and read or do the things in the same way, to be honest with me and try to say the things that I'm not agreeing with the corresponding persons and don't keep all the emotions inside and didn't say anything. I suppose that could be better for me because I have a very good relation with the persons around me. But I never being silent. I always said that I don't want something. Perhaps it doesn't matter. They did they say the things that I want, but I can't express. And when I could do that, I feel so well. I feel free and keep away. ¿Cómo se dice carga? How do you say carga? I have the card and put it away, but I don't feel inside of me angry.
Muchas gracias. The other thing that I hope is that, and what I've always hoped is that this type of work would also be embedded in a larger type of process that would then transition into a design process for solutions. So for instance, if we had in this exercise talked about leverage points and sort of surfaced this notion of leverage points, and then we were in the middle of a process that was to address a particular issue, we could then transfer that idea of leverage points onto the domain that we're studying and say, okay, well, what are the leverage points in this system? What are the leverage points do we think in this, we're recognizing a pattern that is unhealthy. What are the leverage points driving this? So this work would not just be us in a workshop just learning these ideas or refreshing these ideas, but that we would then be attached. So, for instance, there's Peter Checklin's soft systems methodology, in which he has the stream of rational inquiry and then the stream of cultural inquiry, and he includes this thing called the rich picture, right? Where so he already has artistic methods of systems mapping and exploration, that we could use these types of methods inside that type of process, which then would also move to, okay, now how do we design some kind of intervention so that we're not just, okay, let's get a really clear idea of how messed up everything is, and then we'll all go home. It's let's get an idea of how messed up everything is, and now let's move into some kind of systemic design process.
Él está hablando también de que este ejercicio vuelve y recalca que no quiere que se quede como solamente en un workshop, es como, sí, la pasamos bien y vamos a la casa y adiós, sino que lo tomemos como parte del proceso de diseño y de mejora de nuestras comunidades. No solamente pues para el clima organizacional, lo que le entendí, sino también para lo que hacemos en nuestro día a día o en otras actividades o en nuestros campos del conocimiento, como cuáles son esos puntos de apalancamiento para empezar a hacer ese diseño. Entonces, que por favor tengamos en cuenta eso que aprendimos acá, tomarlo como algo que hace parte del proceso de diseño y de mejora, y que bueno, listo, ya identificamos que existen unos puntos de apalancamiento. Cuando estamos en un grupo de cierta... que podemos decir como cierta organización, quién es ese punto de apalancamiento y ahora qué hacemos con ese punto de apalancamiento, ¿sí? Si descubrimos, por ejemplo, en este caso que Patty es el punto de apalancamiento, ¿qué queremos mejorar y qué hacemos con Patty como un punto de apalancamiento?
Gracias. So, in the spirit of making sure we have that kind of closure for this experience today, I'm going to ask us to have a circle so that everyone has an opportunity to say last things they want to say. I mean, we've still got a bit of time, but the circle can take a little while. So I want to invite us, we'll just pass the mic, and everyone has an opportunity to say any last words you want to speak into the circle to close this experience. But you can also choose to say nothing. It's an invitation, not a demand. So if you just want to say gracias and pass the mic, that's fine. And we'll do a bit of translating too, if that's okay. And then you'll have a nice sleep tonight. You'll be so exhausted. So we'll have a circle, and then we'll also invite folks online if they want to turn their cameras on and share anything.
Listo, que para poder, digamos que seguir con el hilo conductor de lo que ha pasado hoy en el taller, nos invita a cerrar del círculo. Entonces, que él va a pasar el micrófono a cada uno de nosotros en orden y nos invita a que digamos unas palabras de clausura, a manera como que usted sabe que el tiempo es corto, pero de lo que ha pasado y como que qué es lo que usted puede cerrar, que es una invitación, no una obligación, que usted puede decir muchas gracias y pasa el micrófono. Sí, puede decir muchas gracias y pasar el micrófono, pero que pues lo invita a que haga ese ejercicio de tratar de cerrar las emociones que emergieron hoy.
Bueno, yo creo firmemente en los procesos de subjetividad. ¿sí? Y en los procesos de la coherencia teórico-práctica que uno tiene en la vida. Entonces, creo que este tipo de actividades también me invitan cada vez más a ser más consciente, reflexiva y empática frente a lo que sucede en todos los lugares y encuentros que tengo con las personas. Entonces, pues siempre quedo muy agradecida con Tom porque es un gran escucha y que si bien hace 5 años me emergieron muchas emociones, también pienso que es que de nosotros y de nosotras pues nos queda y empezamos también a seguirlo trabajando para que en este espacio que nos encontremos pues sigamos siendo también muy reflexivos, cómo nos movemos, porque yo siento que muchas veces en todo momento dejamos abiertas cosas, pero y nos limitamos por el tiempo, como ay, le hubiera dicho perdón o le hubiera dicho tal cosa, pero es que ya pasó un mes, pero es que ya pasó tal cosa, y nunca lo cerramos. Y entonces, ¿cómo podemos empezar también nosotras mismas y nosotros a ir también cuidándonos incluso en esos diferentes espacios, ya siendo conscientes cada vez más de esos aprendizajes? Sorry.
Voy a ir diciendo y tú me ayudas a ir recordando. ¿Quieres intentar? She will try to talk in English.
I think that in our life, in my life, the life, how do you say sentido de vida? The life sense, ya empecé mal. The life sense of my life is the subjectivity, yeah, and the currents theoretical and practice in our society and the old systems or all the places that we live. So in this case, I think that what I I think that what que me llevo, what bring with me, what reflections, learnings, and what kind of feelings I'm going to close, because all the things that we leave open some emotional things or act things, I don't know, but open something. So I think that how I think about that, to close that ideas, not close for, okay, close and never thought about that. No, it's close, but to care me and the others. Maybe.
Also, something that she said that she forgot. It said like, don't worry about what happened 5 years ago. She's really thankful with you, and you are always. It's a pleasure to hear you. It's a pleasure to be with you in your workshop. So don't be mad about that, because she said that it was 5 years ago, and now she thinks that things are going to get better.
Tom mencionaba pues como la importancia de pues de que lo que estas actividades generen, pues también tratar de darles no una solución, sino tratar de tramitarlas. Y yo siento que lo que aprendemos en cada una de estas actividades somos responsables de ver en qué campos o en qué escenarios las podemos aplicar. Yo siento que, por ejemplo, esta actividad tiene mucha acogida en las clases que nosotros desarrollamos. Y en particular le quiero hacer como la confesión de que la actividad de las pelotas ha sido, desde que él nos la enseñó, la he utilizado en espacios de conversación, en movimientos sociales, en contexto y región, en pensamiento sistémico. Entonces, siento que también es la manera en la cual nosotros asumimos lo que aprendemos y la manera en la cual lo empleamos en los diferentes escenarios en los cuales nos desenvolvemos. Entonces, como el agradecimiento por las pelotas.
I'm gonna try to say everything he said. Um, he tell us, and especially wants to tell you that we have the responsibility that everything we learn we have to like make it useful here and outside. And he tries to do that, and he wants to confess that 5 years ago, when you show us the exercise with the balls, plastic balls, yeah, it was an exercise that he used in every class that he has the opportunity. But because he thinks that is so useful, not only to explain system thinking, it's useful to explain a lot of systems that he found the relationship in his classes. So he used in conversation spaces is a course that we do. Social problems class also, ethical and politics course also. So he wants to thank you, and he hopes that you can give him another exercise for doing in class, because he had found that he had found that it's not only for system thinking, it's about everything. And he found like the exercise is so useful with all students that are so young.
Gracias. Pues dos cosas que me parecen importantes. Pues si bien se dio el espacio para dar una retroalimentación de hace 5 años, pues obviamente yo quiero decir que pues la responsabilidad no está en el instructor, está en nosotros, pero sí está la reflexión en el instructor que todos somos, de saber qué abrimos y qué estamos cerrando, qué emociones abrimos, y más desde el campo de la psicología, pues es claro que uno puede estar abriendo ciertas cosas, y como profesionales, en este caso como docentes, somos responsables de eso. Entonces esa pregunta también pedagógicamente debe estar, a mi modo de ver. Lo otro que quiero decir que creo que me enseñó el espacio es que en algún momento dije, voy a seguir intentando ver que Patty sí danzó. Y voy a intentar pensar hipotéticamente, más hacia la transdisciplinariedad, que yo hubiese danzado con Patty y me invitara a pensar que todos estábamos danzando. Entonces dejaba de ver que había un conflicto ahí, sino que era como un performance maravilloso en donde danzábamos, y el pivote, porque era la actriz principal de este show, es Patty, y yo pues al bailar con ella entonces me vuelvo el actor principal. Y eso resignifica absolutamente todo. Si lo trato de pasar a la vida real, como nos dice José, pues ¿cómo hago yo para incluso también resignificar algo que todo el tiempo estoy mirando como un conflicto de intereses, y de quién me protege y de cuál es mi propósito, o a quién sobre quién me estoy tratando de proteger? Pues entonces lo que siento yo es que esto nos puede ayudar, botar conjeturas o hipótesis nos puede ayudar a tratar de resignificar, ¿sí? Reenmarcar ese fenómeno y tratar de decir, oiga, si esto hubiera sido una danza, hasta nos hubiéramos tenido público y audiencia y nos habrían aplaudido y hubieran dicho, qué show tan interesante. Sí, es un show no antes visto y todo lo demás. Now in English. So, no, I'm also really thankful, as I have told you, about what you did 5 years ago. Of course, it is a responsibility of us, like the things that happen with our relationships in the job context, but also as we are learning to be system thinkers and professors, there is also a question about ourselves to say, okay, what do you open when you do these exercises, and what do you kind of close in a good way when you do it? That is the same question as Jose, I believe. And the other thing was like thinking about this exercise, I pushed myself to maintain with the idea that Patty was dancing. So that could give me a reframing of the whole thing and say, okay, what if I will go and dance with Patty and understand that there is a whole dancing between without conflict relations, but the conflict relations are part of the dancing movement. So I reframe it in other way that can help us when you put this to real life to try to do a hypothesis or conjectures that in a transdisciplinary way that give you the possibility to say, okay, I'm framing this conflict in this way, but what if I reframe it in another way that kind of dissolve the idea of conflict there. That is I think very connected with Paulo Freire relation with this oppressor and the oppressor and the other. So you don't have you have to dissolve the idea of oppression. Maybe could be.
Bueno, Spanish first. Yo hoy tengo como varios descubrimientos. Primero, yo no pertenezco al grupo de Misco, no no tengo la etiqueta de pensamiento sistémico, pero yo siento que yo hago muchas cosas que tienen que ver con eso sin que tenga la etiqueta, sin que diga, y no me sé la teoría. Y creo que a veces es mejor no saberla porque me permite hacerlo más intuitivamente y hacer cosas, porque yo hacía teatro invisible que de Boal, entonces yo hacía una cantidad de cosas así. Y lo segundo es que el caos también es hermoso, del caos salen montones de cosas que pueden ayudarnos a otra forma de organización. Ahí creo que estoy de acuerdo contigo en eso de resignificar. El caos puede ser otra forma de ver las cosas y de organizarnos. Ok. Okay, I accepted to dance with you. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's a good imagine. Yeah. Okay. At the first, I want to say that I have discovered that I don't belong to MISCO or systematic thinking or something like that you do, but in my life, I made a lot of things in that way, but in an intuitive way, because I work with unseen theater like Augusto Boal, and I learned a lot of techniques for working with groups or persons and try to erase his emotion and try to make solutions by theater. That's one thing. And the other, that chaos is beautiful. I love chaos because it's another way to organize things. I don't know why the persons feel afraid about chaos. Chaos is a wonderful word and is another way to stay in the life and in the world. Thank you. I want to give you a hug.
Oh, gracias. Muchas gracias.
Voy a empezar en español. I will start in Spanish and then English. Me conecto mucho con lo que dijo Patti acerca del caos. Hay una frase que me dijo Marisabel en algún momento en un equipo docente que ella me dijo, el conflicto es necesario, ¿sí? Porque ella venía como que muy enojada porque un estudiante le dijo, quiero que un acuerdo de la clase es que tratemos de evitar el conflicto. Y ella le dijo, el conflicto es necesario. Yo me quedé mirándola como, ¿por qué? Porque, pues, no evitar el conflicto. Le dijo, el conflicto es necesario porque saca emociones, devela muchas cosas que están pasando en un grupo de personas y que, pues, si no las manejamos o si no las abordamos, pues probablemente el caos y muchas cosas no tan buenas van a emerger. Entonces, que es importante que el conflicto exista para que mejoremos nuestras relaciones y nuestras relaciones humanas. Entonces, conectó mucho con lo que decía Patti, también pues por el ejercicio y el remarcamiento que decía Daniel de estamos frente a alguien al que tenemos mucho miedo y necesitamos protegernos y que en nuestras organizaciones vemos los conflictos en nuestro día a día. Incluso recuerdo mucho, y esto pues Ángel y yo tenemos el puesto de trabajo al lado, y una vez saliendo yo del puesto de trabajo con la maleta, le rompí una taza que era muy importante para él y me sentí pésimo, pero fue sin querer. Y claro, yo decía, uy, ¿cómo le digo a Ángel que quiere tanto esa tacita que la rompí? Y fue también como ese proceso de algo tan simple como eso, pues es un proceso también de cómo abordo esas relaciones. Probablemente si Ángel y yo no tuviéramos una relación tan cercana de amigos, eso hubiese sido un problema un poco más grande. Pero creo que la misma relación que hemos cultivado en el grupo de personas al que pertenezco y también la interacción constante que mencionaba Tom ha hecho de que esos conflictos sean mucho más fáciles de manejarlos. Okay, now in English, what I said that I was connect what Patty said with cows, because I remembered a professor that told me that conflicts are necessary, and I was like, what? Why conflicts are necessary? And she came after class, and she said, I'm mad with a student that said that one thing that we have to avoid in class is conflict. And I said, no, conflict is necessary in this class because we need to manage everything that's what's going on in this course, because then it will be a big problem. So please, we have to manage that conflict as soon as possible. So if something is wrong, please tell me that blah, 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 blah. So, and when she told me that, I was like, and I connect that with what Patty said and also with Daniel said, because in this exercise, we see a lot of chaos. And usually we try to avoid chaos. I'm not gonna talk with my boss. I'm not gonna tell my partner that something that he does annoys me. And then I remember an episode that happened with me with Angel. He had a mug that a friend give it to him, and he loved that mug. And one day I was with my bag and was trying to get out of the office, and unconsciously I dropped the mug, and it in a lot of pieces, and I was like, oh my God, what I was going to tell to Angel. And he was in the meeting room, like working, and I say, okay. I know, and Angel was so kind and say, okay, don't worry, it was an accident. But I'm conscious that if we didn't have the relationship we had now, we are friends, maybe if we don't say what we don't like of each other because we do this exercise, we told, maybe it would be a big problem. See? So I'm so grateful that the people that I work with, and I know that I have to manage everything that happens as soon as possible. I'm still working on that, but it's something that I can say that I can live with myself today.
Bueno, mil gracias por invitarme. No, pues es la primera vez que estoy aquí invitada por el grupo, por el profesor Hernán, me invitó pues a participar con ustedes y estoy feliz de haber hecho este ejercicio. Yo siento que todos son como del área social, no sé, ingeniera, bueno, pero siento que son más como del área social o humana, más humana. Yo soy del área ambiental, ecológica. Entonces, pues por muchos años he trabajado, pero con el objetivo de entender sistemas complejos allá, es decir, en los ecosistemas, en los socioecosistemas, pero no había hecho este ejercicio digamos, a nivel de organización, ¿no? Nunca lo había hecho y me parece muy interesante porque yo trabajo en una facultad de artes también. Yo estoy en el área de ciencias ambientales de una facultad de artes y ahí hay diseñadores, hay artistas, hay músicos, sí, es lindo. Entonces, pero nunca he hecho este ejercicio como en una organización y como, es decir, la relación con el arte me ha hecho ver lo emocional, lo que sale emocionalmente muy contrastado con lo que sale desde la ciencia, que es más frío y más cuadriculado y más un poco así. Entonces, pues me parece lindo este ejercicio. Y bueno, no, te agradezco también a ti, pues que me hayas dejado participar en este grupo que creo que ya había estado con él aquí. Tú tampoco. Bueno, okay, I will try to speak in English. My English is so bad because for a long time I have not speak in English. Okay. I am so happy to be now in this group with doing this exercise because my experience is in understanding the complex system in the nature, ecosystems, social ecosystems too, but principally looking for the nature, how recover processing nature, how restore some places, etc. So it was very interesting do this exercise with all of you and identify some things that I feel too, but I was not conscious about that. So thank you so much. Probably tomorrow, probably tomorrow I will show you other things about nature, but it was very interesting for me. Thank you.
Bueno, primero me llevo como esa necesidad de tener claras mis motivaciones para así tener la capacidad de observar y moverme. Eso me gustó mucho. Como que tenía claridad de qué era lo que necesitaba ver ahí y cómo podía observar y moverme. Ojalá si fuera en la vida real. Quiero ser así en la vida real, por favor.
Sí, es que sé que tiene muchas anotaciones. Por eso sé que puedo hacer ese ejercicio. I'm gonna write some things, so that allows me to translate like this. Oh, okay. She said like she is like gratefully with herself, like she had the power of notice what's going on there, that she has so clear what she had to do and her objectives that that she didn't came with all that chaos, and she had the power to say, okay, I'm gonna put a step back and observe what's going on.
Como no tomarme en ese sentido las cosas de manera personal, teniendo como el reconocimiento de que las otras personas también tienen unas motivaciones que yo no conozco.
She's saying like she also said She recognized she recognized that she didn't have to take everything that is going on personal. That she had the power that knowing that everyone has something to care about that is not necessary with her or something that comes on her.
Y como pues hablábamos en el curso que hemos contado, creo que una frase ahí, más información, menos juicios. Más información, menos juicios. Y de manera organizacional, la necesidad de resignificar la estructura. Yo, por ser del lado de las humanidades, siempre tenemos la discusión con el pensamiento sistémico frente a dónde están las relaciones del poder. Pero reconocer hoy que precisamente el nodo que tenía todas las conexiones y que tenía cierto control, no necesariamente tenía el poder, para mí fue muy importante. ¿Sí?
She wants to came here with some quote that you said in the course that we are having with you in 1 minute. That is more information, less judgment, and also
el nodo que tiene todas las conexiones y cierto control no necesariamente siempre tiene poder.
And identifies that the point that has all the connections and all the relationships with other points in the systems not necessarily has the power, because a lot of them, because I'm not came from the humanity science. She came for social science, so she and her group always are looking for the power. Where's the power in all the systems and in system thinkings too? So one thing that make her like, yes, it was like not necessary. The person who had the connections has the power.
En ese sentido, yo siempre tengo muchas discusiones con las estructuras jerárquicas, pero esto me permite también identificar que en la jerarquía hay vulnerabilidad, hay ceguera y hay interpretaciones.
She has like a conflict with hierarchy. Yes, and and she knows that in the hierarchy structure, she knows that is vulnerability. Yes, blindness and misunderstandings or misunderstandings, and because we live in a system that is full of these hierarchy systems and structures, and she recognizes now that they are not perfect.
Okay. Muchas gracias. Thank you to all of you out there too. I'm afraid we're at time, and I'm sure you have many thoughts to share, but I know the ponderers will have a session where you get to share those things. And I just want to thank you for your patience and staying with us. I know it can be tough. We're having this group experience and you're watching from out there, and I hope you felt as included as we could try and make you. And I promise I did not pay any of these people to say anything nice about me. That's but I appreciate all of your kind words, and I look forward to sharing the insights of all of you, our ponderers, who have so much knowledge, and I look forward to learning from all of you as we continue. But I believe it's a break time, yes? Sí, gracias.